Hello and welcome to another video. If you're new to my channel, Smudge Toast, I am B, a digital illustrator who loves to draw with a dreamy storybook feel. I also love to document my life as an artist here on YouTube, whether that be in vlogs, tutorials, or draw with me's like this one. In today's Draw With Me video, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind recently, and that has to do with art style, and especially what it means to naturally progress into the art style that you want. Recently, I've been growing into my personal art style and solidifying the feeling of my artwork that I've worked to create for years now. I always knew that I wanted to draw dreamy, aesthetic, almost ethereal, fairy tale and storybook type illustrations, but in the end I didn't have a clear picture of what that would ultimately look like for me. As a result, I've tried many different styles over the years, ranging from stylistic portraits to simple, more cartoonish designs. Throughout all the trial and error, I've learned some valuable lessons, and those are what I want to share with you today. Before I dive into this topic though, I want to take a second to talk about the illustration that I'm working on in this video. Recently, I've been learning a lot from an artist named Carol Mello, and especially about her workflow and process from planning to rendering, and it's helped me so much. I want to make a future video on how I now plan out all my drawings step by step, but for now I just wanted to mention her as my inspiration because her process has really helped me in areas that I was previously struggling in. As you saw in the beginning of this video, I started out with a whole sketch page, basically practicing all the elements that I wanted in this illustration, like poses, the clothes, and other things like that. Then from there, I picked the pose that I liked the most and then started building off of it. For this illustration, and a lot of my illustrations these days, my main character reflects the environment around her. So it's less that I'm drawing like a literal girl in snowy woods, but instead I'm drawing like the feeling of snow and the peace and serenity that comes with it embodied in a character, if that makes sense. I also wanted the colors to reflect that serenity, so I chose my color palette to be a soft pastel sunset reflecting over the snow. The character's base color is like this pretty lavender mauve/gray, which also blends into the background a little bit, and then the highlights and the saturation of her skin reflects from the sunset to the snow, so the colors kind of all blend together, and I wanted it to almost feel like her skin is transparent, and again, she's just taking on the colors of the environment around her because she is a part of that environment. I really love how this illustration turned out, and I truly feel like it signifies a sort of turning point in my art style. I know that there's no real end-all be-all art style and that artwork will never stop evolving, but there is such a thing as getting to a place in your artwork where you feel like you've reached your goal style in a sense, and to me, this feels like that. So using this as a segue back into the topic, I'm going to talk about some things that I think are really important to keep in mind if you are a beginner artist and are struggling to find your style, or rather to grow into the style that you want. I'm trying to avoid using the term finding your style. I know a lot of artists feel like that signifies a sense of feeling rushed or pressured into having just one cohesive, unique style that stands out, and there's a lot of pressure with that. I know for me, I also felt rushed into finding a style, and I felt like I wasn't a valid artist until I found one, and that's just not true. Looking back on all the styles I've ever had, I can say that I was an artist then as much as I am an artist now, all the same. A lot of artists don't even have one set style, and they play around with all kinds, and I think that that's awesome. However, because there are so many artists that hope to find a signature style, I'm here to talk about how we can naturally grow into that style instead of forcing it. One of the biggest pieces of advice I have is to combine learning basic fundamentals with elements that you love in artwork that inspires you. This means practicing poses, angles, body parts, every sort of basic teaching in art, and then paying attention to what you love in other types of artwork. One saying I heard a long time ago that helped me a lot in my art journey is learn the rules so you know how to break them. So in any style that you want for your art, it's important that you learn the fundamentals first. And then as you are learning the fundamentals, pay attention to the stylistic elements you want to add. And then balance playing around with those stylistic elements with still learning the fundamentals. The next piece of advice that helped me was to create a mood board on Pinterest. Now, this is not necessarily an art inspiration board, but more so made up of any picture that you think expresses the vibe and feelings you want for your artwork. When I did this, I got a much clearer picture on the elements that I wanted to focus on in my art. For me, this means pictures that includes soft, atmospheric colors, skies featuring stars and clouds, cottagecore aesthetics, and fairy tale elements. I often look back on this board to remind me of the feeling that I want my artwork to embody. This is my next piece of advice. For me, paying attention to the feelings that I want my artwork to convey rather than the literal drawing helps me to not overthink what I'm making. So pay close attention to the feelings that you want your artwork to emulate. For example, when I'm picking out colors, I no longer ask myself, do these colors look good together? But I ask myself, are these colors adding to that dreamy storybook feeling that I love in my artwork? If the answer is yes, then I lean into those colors. And if the answer is no, then I change the palette until it resonates with me. I used to overthink when it came to rendering my artwork in terms of what I thought looked good, and I ignored what my gut was telling me. Many times I would spend like 8 to 10 hours on a drawing that I would end up hating, really, because throughout the process I was ignoring my gut feeling telling me that it wasn't working out. And instead of changing the piece, I would just render what I already had because I didn't want to, in a sense, start over. But that just never ended up working out. So listen to what your gut is telling you, because more often than not, we subconsciously already know what we would like best for our illustration, but sometimes we're too scared to take artistic risks. I know that for me, I used to be scared of using certain colors together, like pink and purple, because I was afraid that it would turn out looking too juvenile. But as you can see in this piece, those two colors are the ones that stick out the most, and I think they are a perfect choice. My final tip is to not be afraid of trying as many different styles as you feel inclined to do. For some people, growing into their styles is just a matter of practicing techniques, and then they find what works for them, and it's a linear process. But for others like me, it takes a lot of trial and error and bouncing all around the board before landing on a spot that fits. I just say that if you are in the process of trying out different styles and figuring out what works best for you, enjoy the process of it. Enjoy what your artwork looks like now and in the past. Enjoy every step of it. This is the biggest thing that I wish I would have heard as a beginner artist. If I could go back in time and talk to myself when I was just starting out, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I wouldn't teach her how to draw my current style, but I would instead teach her how to enjoy the process of learning and experimenting. Your style will take however long it needs to, and it's so much more important to enjoy the process and have fun than it is to rush into finding a style. So remember, it will happen with time, and along the way, you can use these tips to help naturally guide along your style and your drawing process. We are getting to the end of this illustration process, so I'm going to let the rest of this video play out. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Thank you so much for sticking around all the way to the end of this video. Please let me know what other videos or topics you would like to see, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe so you can watch this small channel grow. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.